Sure. So good afternoon. Thank you for coming. Let me start by introducing myself. I am Israeli. Before coming to Japan, I worked in several startup companies in Israel and in the States. As every Israeli apparently does, I also co-founded a startup company, and we sold that company eventually to Yahoo. I have been working in Rakuten since 2015. Several things, but it's a big company, so you get to work on different things. Rakuten ID and Rakuten Pay are one of the things that I worked recently. And right now I work as a vice general manager of a department called Entertainment Services Development Department. So what is the commerce and marketing company? How is it related to Rakuten? So actually, Rakuten is a Rakuten group of companies, and the commerce and marketing company is one of the companies in that group. So we provide lots of commerce-related services, as you can guess. And basically, each one of these services is a business on its own. So it could be, it could be just a startup company somewhere outside, and they would just build a business around that. But we have these businesses in one company. So let me go over. I have like 6 examples of businesses. So let me introduce them a little bit first, and then I will discuss the technical side. So first one is Rakuten Ichiba. Probably everybody knows it. It's one of the largest marketplaces in Japan, and you can buy anything here. And the reason is that Rakuten Ichiba connects between merchants and users. So merchants don't have to be like some kind of big shops. They can be also very, very small, kind of like mom and pop shops. So, and by doing this, actually everybody benefits because users can find basically anything that they look for, and merchants benefit from the additional users that come to purchase their items. Another one, and also it is a marketplace, but this time it's marketplace for tickets. So it's called Rakuten Tickets. And the purpose of this service is to sell tickets to concerts in Japan. So basically, this time we connect the event organizers with users. So I think the majority of bigger events in Japan, you can buy tickets here. So recently we had some sales for like Nogizaka 46. I'm actually going to use Nogizaka 46 in few slides. It's because we had few sales here, so that's what I remember. Next one is Rakuten Books, which is a marketplace for books of different kinds. So you can buy paper books. You can also get DVDs, music DVDs, CDs, basically like packaged media. But you can also find ebooks here, and yeah, so it's the same service for that. Next one is Rakuten Travel, which is a marketplace for anything related to travel. So you can obviously it's one of the largest ones in Japan. You can reserve hotels, you can buy airplane tickets, you can rent cars, and so on and so forth. So yeah, travel. And one before last is Rakuma. So Rakuma is a second-hand marketplace. So there are actually lots of second-hand shops, at least where I live in Koenji, but you don't need to go to a shop. You can just sell your items here, and basically everybody benefits, right? Because again, you don't throw away items which can be used by others. People can purchase items which are cheaper, but still usable. And overall, we have less waste, which is important. The last one that I wanted to mention is Rakuten Fashion. The idea here is that it focuses on fashion-related items, maybe some kind of higher-level brands, but not only. But if you're looking for like clothing or like anything related to clothing, you would probably go here and find things here. So well, I think I have synergies in the title of the presentation. However, so far I just mentioned well, separate businesses, right? They all doing probably pretty well in their field, but there is no synergy so far. So let me explain how synergy is related to what I talked about. Move from getting tickets to buy something on Ichiba. Another example is let's say you reserved some hotel. Let's say you're going to Hokkaido, so you went to Rakuten Travel and you reserved a hotel. Probably, not necessarily, but probably getting some kind of a travel guide would be beneficial. So we can suggest to get some item from Rakuten Books. So that's another kind of a synergy. And the last one is fashion and Rakuma. So let's say you buy some expensive items on fashion, but you don't necessarily need to wear them until they're completely destroyed. So you can sell them and get some money from that, and then maybe get some more items in fashion. And this is why the synergy also makes sense and useful for everybody. So in essence, what's happening is that instead of having a marketplace dedicated to each vertical, to each kind of field, you get a much larger marketplace, which is actually comprised of not just like items of the same type, right? It's not just some kind of I don't know, books or like electrical items. It's you can combine travel with books, which is nice. I mean, it works for it's good for everybody. So and I keep like saying good for everybody because it is part of how we want to work, right? The goal is to build things that make everybody can benefit from. So this is what we are trying to do here. So so far it was just some kind of a business introduction, but I think this is supposed to be a technical presentation. So let me talk about some technical challenges that we have here. So Rakuten services are used by probably the majority of users in Japan, this way or another. But the low, like the number of users and the number of transactions is huge. It's something that you can hardly get in many other in other companies or in other services. So, but as challenging as it is complicated. So, I mentioned here 4 things, but it's not actually just these 4. It's just like an example that I could think of about things we had recently. So, system load. Well, again, lots of users means we have lots of transactions, lots of QPS for various parts of the system. But in addition to that, we have in Rakuten we have super sales. So basically, it's a time-limited sale that starts at some specific time and finishes also at specific time. So and when these sales happen, users basically wait until it starts, and then everybody comes and tries to purchase items. There's on Ichiba, but also, for example, in tickets, if there is a popular concert, if we sell tickets for popular concerts, it means that usually they start selling them at some specific time, like I don't know, usually it's Saturday at noon. So everybody comes to try to purchase the tickets, but the number of tickets is limited, right? So that's why everybody comes in the same moment. And you can see here, this is a real graph of one of the systems. And you can see on the left side, it's not very, like this is the QPS of some system. So you can see on the left side, it's not it's relatively, low, but then there is this huge spike. And then it kind of continues, it comes down, but it goes on for the duration of these sales. So the spike in traffic is actually problematic, right? It's not problematic, of course, but it's good that we have this, but it is not necessarily trivial to implement. So that's one of the challenges that we have here. Another one is related to data. So we have like different kinds of data is used in different scenarios and for different purposes. So we have, for example, we have Rakuten Music, which is a service to stream music. And for that, the storage, the capacity that we need to use is huge because we have to keep all the music data. And we have the same thing for video because we have also video related services. So this is the amount of data. Then we have the requirements for some kind of real-time event processing when users purchase things or do some things on the site. We have to make sure that there is no fraud, things like that. So they demand a real-time event processing. And again, we have lots of events. Transactions, it makes sense to understand what kind of transactions we have and how we deal with them. And of course, the last thing is we need to make sure that all this data is delivered to users quickly, right? So they don't need to wait. They don't need to, the user experience is important. So we have to make sure that the delivery is working properly. Yet another challenge is related to the business logic itself. So I was mentioning, wouldn't it be nice if you know that there is a Nogizaka concert and then you offer some items related to Nogizaka. It would be nice, but how do you actually know that the Nogizaka 46 artist on Rakuten Music is the same artist that you have in Ichiba? Maybe for Nogizaka 46, it's relatively easy because it's a big artist, so probably the cataloging is done properly. But for the majority of items, it's actually not the case. So here we need to find some ways to create some kind of a master of all this data. We probably can, and we use some kind of AI related things to help with that. But even with that, it's not like you get answers. So it's actually quite challenging. So it's kind of related to business, but it's not necessarily just business. The last thing that I wanted to mention here is the availability. So Japan, we have lots of earthquakes, we have lots of typhoons and things like that. So it means we cannot really put everything in one region. For example, in Tokyo, we cannot choose a region which is like the most popular for the majority of users and just keep everything there. So we need to to spread the systems, all of the systems in different regions across Japan. So it makes our systems basically, it means that our system need to be distributed. It's not like some kind of a unsolvable problem, of course, and there are ways to do this. However, again, this is all in the context of the scale of our services. So if everything needs to be distributed in multiple regions for the millions of users and the millions of transactions that we have, then it makes the system more complicated. So, but we still, of course, have to do it because actually some of the services that we have are kind of, they're like really important in cases of disasters. So we really should keep them available all the time. So, as I mentioned before, one of the reasons for this is that services have history, and it's not unique, I think, to us. It's not unique to Rakuten, because let's say you have a startup company today, and they are building some product, they're building some service. So of course they would use something that is probably the best fit, for this thing today. However, in a couple of years, right, the state of the art will not be the same as it was before. And even in these like startup and kind of nimble companies, some things get older and things need to be renewed. So so it's basically the same thing. And as I mentioned before, we have each one of these services is kind of a startup company on its own, right? At some point, it was a startup company just within Rakuten. So they have like their life cycle, right? So if something was older, now maybe it's kind of using something older, but it's probably renewing itself. So there is a constant process that we have in the company where things are getting kind of renewed. But I think it's not different from any other company. Another thing here is that we have some internal platforms that we use for various things. And the capabilities and the functionalities of these platforms, they also changed with time. So in the beginning, when Rakuten started more than 20 years ago, there were almost no internal platforms, right? It just was one service, Ichiba, and then it started from that. So for that service, we needed to build the IT system, some kind of system to show the items and everything. But then more services came in, and then we said, okay, actually the ID system should be used for all the new services. So it means that we need to make it a platform usable by everybody. And this is the same thing for other internal platforms, right? So ID system is kind of easy to reason about, but for example, things related to internal like cloud and things like that are less obvious. So that's why kind of, that's one of the reasons we have so many things. But actually, it's not the only, these are like history is not just the only reason. And it's also about the mindset that we have about building things. So the mindset is to use the right tool for the job. So if at some time the right tool was this, maybe now the right tool is something else. And it helps with many things, right? It's it helps the engineers because they can learn something new and they're like encouraged to learn something new. It helps the service because building something with newer tools, in most cases, should be easier than with things before. I mentioned before distributed services, right? But let's say 20 years ago, it was very hard to build a distributed system. Now it's much easier. It's still challenging, but it's much easier. You have many more tools to do that. Of course, we have also higher productivity, right? With things that with technologies we have more recent technologies, you just get higher productivity. So actually, this idea to use the right tool for the job is one of the key reasons for that slide with lots of pictures on them. But it still comes with some issues. So it's a big company, right? And we have lots of engineers and we have lots of services. So if we start building every new thing with some new tool or new framework or new language that engineers want to build, it might work for some time, but at some point it will be hard to scale because let's say some bigger services, not one person works on them and not two people work on them. So scaling out kind of like esoteric frameworks or languages is possible, but maybe we need to think if we really want to do that, right? So it's not about saying there is no rule that says if some framework is not popular, like it doesn't have like enough stars on GitHub, we're not going to use it. There's no such rule. But before we do things, we should and we do try to analyze what are the benefits of using something like that versus the drawbacks. And if we come, to the conclusion that the benefits outweigh the drawbacks, then we would use it. So this is the governance part of this balance here, right? So we try to balance empowerment to allow and encourage engineers to use the things that they think are the best for the best tool versus governance, right? It's hard to scale out. It's hard to maintain systems if everything is totally separate. So we try to build these standards internally. Of course, they change with time because technology changes. So we update them, and not always we actually can follow a standard because sometimes maybe a service requires really something very specific. So in this case, it doesn't make sense to say, no, don't do that because we don't know what it is. So I have a couple of examples of maybe not very standard ways that basically how we empower the engineers to build some things. So first example is Rakuten ID. Depending on, I think, so now we're in the process of migrating from the older kind of Rakuten ID internal platform to the newer one. And depending on the service, when you sign in to Rakuten, in all Rakuten services, you usually have to sign in. So you would either get like some kind of older UI or you will get this newer UI. So this newer UI is built using Elm. And when we started building it, there was a proposal to use Elm. And then, Elm is, I know, looks nice, but it has some other drawbacks, right? Why not use it? So we did do some kind of, we did a few POCs, and we tried to understand what would be the benefits of using Elm for something like this. And in the end, and we also built, before doing this, we built some other a few internal tools with that just to kind of see if it would actually scale out. And we decided that yes, it can scale out, and we invest quite significantly in these systems using Elm. So that's one of the examples. And actually, I think we have like a community in Rakuten of Elm developers, and we also kind of communicate with the communities outside of Rakuten. So that's one example. And another example is Rakuten Music. Rakuten Music is a service, I think we have more than 100 million titles, basically, but it's similar to other services, other music streaming services. We have versions for iOS and native apps for iOS and Android. And we also have a web player. But actually, the functionality is pretty much the same between all of these platforms. You search for music, you bookmark some music, you play it, right? This is the service. So instead of solving the same problem just in different platform, we thought, how can we improve it? So there are all these solutions like React Native, kind of a hybrid solutions, which we did not find actually useful for this product. But we did want to try to use more web technologies. And so we found a way to basically integrate web technologies into the native apps. So now we spend less time on fixing bugs on different platforms, and it's also easier to develop new features actually, because you just do it once and then it works everywhere. And from the user experience perspective, there is no change because it feels just as native as as a native app. And for this also, there was like a hypothesis. If we use web technologies in this specific way, it would be beneficial. So before we kind of said, yeah, let's do it, of course, we kind of checked that we did a few kind of trials, few POCs to understand if it's actually going to work. And we chose to use it. And we are quite happy with this. So I think this is it from me. Thank you very much. And and I think, if there is one thing you should remember from this is that the way that we build things here is we try to use the right tool for the job. So that's kind of the mindset. And it sometimes it works better, sometimes it doesn't work as well, but at least we try to do it like this. Thank you very much.